Oh, they just told me that Shaykh Abdullah Misra live. When was he live on Instagram?
Okay, we'll begin with this one, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can I stay here?
There's a lot of
This is the walls.
too much echo.
Inshallah.
If he takes it off, we can't hear him.
Brother is bringing up the other mic. I just don't want to. Like, you really can't hear anything?
No, we hear you. It's just there's the echo is so strong.
The echo is strong.
Do you prefer I don't use a mic at all?
Yeah.
Is that actually better?
But then they can't hear in the
They
back.
can hear. Oh yeah, then also the live stream can.
Yeah.
Okay. So the new mic is coming very soon, inshallah. So where did we leave off? Which hadith are we at now? We're at 32. Because we read the 31st hadith, right? And about renounce the world and Allah will love you. And renounce what people have with them and people will love you. And we talked about the importance of wanting Allah's love, but it's also good to want people's love. Which people are we talking about? Which people are we talking about? The righteous people. Okay? Even among Muslims, we mean the righteous Muslims. Because look, there are people on TikTok who really want people to love them. Okay? MashaAllah. Thank you to Brother Hugo, MashaAllah. Every week, MashaAllah. Selflessly serving us, alhamdulillah. In the class, MashaAllah. That sounds much better, right? Yeah. So we mentioned that people, when you want people to love you, everybody has a natural desire for people to love them. But which type of people? It is the good people. In this hadith, the point is not to have worldly people love you. The point is not to have people of ghafla, people of heedlessness, but the people who are believers. Now, the funny thing is, though, human beings all work in a similar fashion. Okay? So even among non-Muslims, worldly people, greedy people, even Muslims, once you start desiring what people have, you're competing for them. You're competing with them. Right? So, like, it's, for example, it's just a very basic fact, right? If a woman has a friend, let me think, how would we do it? If the woman has a friend, and she thinks that that friend is interested in her husband, you think that woman's going to like that woman? Absolutely not. And vice versa as well. But the friend who she feels absolutely no risk with regard to her relationship, that person, she's fine with that person. Or same with the husband. So in that same way, that's a very different example, it's a relationship example. But same with wealth. If a wealthy businessman thinks that a person is just trying to become friends with them so they can get some sort of business benefit, then that person keeps away from that person. The business person keeps away from the person, the grifter, as they call them, right? But when you show, remember, like I said, if you want to be friends with a celebrity, what's the trick to being friends with a celebrity?
Ignore them.
You ignore them completely. You don't take them on, you don't fanboy, once you ask for an autograph or anything, done. You're in the other category. You're on the other side. But once you say, no big deal, I don't know who you are, you don't know who I am, and you pretend, even though you know who they are, you don't behave like that. Immediately, what do they say? This person doesn't want my fame. They don't want my popularity. So they feel safer around you, and then they begin to treat you like a normal person. And then they begin to love you for your qualities that you have. In fact, the person that people like the most is the person who does not need them. The person who's independent. They have everything they need. And actually, this is also one reason why people so the reason why they call a wealthy person ghani, right? The word wealthy person is ghani. What it actually means, ghina means freedom of, free of need from anything else. Because a wealthy person doesn't need other people wealth-wise, right? So a person, the Prophet said, and I'm going a little bit on tangent, he said, al-ghina ghina nafs. He says, true wealth is being wealthy in your soul. Because there could be a person who has a lot of money, but they just want more and more and more. People don't love that type of person. But somebody who does not want anything because they have Allah, and that is the real source of wealth. When you have Allah, that can fulfill your needs like nothing else can. And so that person who is very close to Allah, never wants anything from anyone else, then that person, everybody learns to trust them. And actually it's very interesting, because there are even, interestingly, and this is a very side tangent, a tangent of a tangent of a tangent, but there were awliya, the close friends of Allah, pious people, who would be so gentle to other beings and not want any harm for them, that wild animals would come and eat from their hands. Deer would just come and eat from their hands. Birds would come and eat from their hands. Why? Because nature did not detect that you want to take anything from me. You're not just trying to take my life. You're not trying to take anything. So there are examples of great awliya who lived in the jungle and the desert and wilderness, and they had no problem, because it's not just for human beings, but even nature. If you don't try to take from nature, nature will learn to trust you as well. So the next hadith is hadith number 32, and this is called, Bismillah, do no harm nor return harm. So there's no harm, doing harm or returning harm. This is on page 106, for those of you who have the book. And we narrate through our teacher, Shaykh Abdullah Misra, who narrated from his teachers back to the Imam Al-Nawawi, who narrates back to the people of the Hadith, the Sahih al-Hadith, back to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. عن أبي سعيد سعد بن مالك بن سنان الخدري رضي الله تعالى عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم قال لا ضرر ولا ضرار حديث حسن رواه ابن ماجه ودارقطني وغيرهما مسندا، ورواه مالك في الموطأ مرسلا عن عمرو بن يحيى عن أبيه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم فأسقط أبا سعيد وله طرق يقوي بعضها بعضا. It's a long footnote. It was narrated on the authority of Abu Sa'id Sa'd ibn Malik ibn Sinan al-Khudri, may Allah be pleased with him, that the Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings be upon him, actually what it says is peace and blessings be upon him and his family, said, there should be no harming others, nor reciprocating harm. Okay? Or another way, there is no causing harm, nor returning harm in our religion. And this is a hadith which Ibn Majah and Ad-Darqutni and others, it is Hasan, and they related it as a sound chain of narration. meaning completely connected back to the Prophet ﷺ, but which Malik related in his Muwatta as a broken chain, where they skipped the Sahabi from Amr ibn Yahya, from his father, from the Prophet ﷺ, dropping the name of Abu Sa'id in Universal Hadith. This hadith has lines of transmission and strengthening one another, so it may be regarded as sound Islam. Now that's a footnote. That is a footnote. You don't necessarily need to understand all of that footnote. But here, Imam Nawawi seems to be getting into the technicalities of the hadith. But let's go back to the beginning. So how many words does this hadith have in Arabic? La darar wa la dirar.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Literally 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you could say. But in reality, it's like la darar is like one word, basically. Wa la dirar is like a second word. It's like literally 3 to 5 words. Okay? Yet this is such a huge principle that Imam Abu Dawood, one of the narrators of the 6 books of Hadith, he said that if there were 5 hadith which encapsulate Islamic law, this hadith would be one of them. And this is so simple. Our beloved Rasul, look at the gift that he had. Under this hadith, you can think of so many different rulings of Islam, but also modern law. It comes under modern law. What's an example of this? No causing harm, nor returning harm. Give me an example.
Like evidence, if you have not caused any harm to someone, then obviously you would not be punishable through the evidence.
Okay. There is no harm, nor returning harm. There's no causing harm, nor returning harm. One of the ways of summarizing this, as you can see, is don't harm anyone, whether you started it or not. Do not harm anyone, whether you started it or not. So, let's see what. So basically, any harm, this idea of darar, right? Harm is haram. It's only one letter difference. Harm is oppression. When you harm someone else, you are taking away their rights. You are causing them pain in such a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not permitted. And this is a type of oppression. And remember the hadith we read earlier that all oppression is haram? The Prophet, what did Allah say? Allah says, I have made inni haramtu dhulma al nafsi. I made dhulm, oppression, haram on myself, and I've made it haram on all of you. So do not oppress one another. Right? So in this way, the idea of harm, is it just what do we think of when we think of harm? We think of physical. Is that the only type of harm to do somebody? A darar means what? In literal Arabic, a darar is like a disadvantage. It's a harm, but it's not just a physical harm. So what's an example of something that comes under this? Emotional harm. So you don't do emotional harm to anybody. What else?
Financial.
Anything that hurts, financial. What's an example of financial harm? Okay, riba. But what else? What else that comes into daily Islamic rulings? In fact, this one hadith has been made into a rule of Islam itself. So there are 4 sources of Islamic law, right? Quran, Sunnah, Qiyas, which is like analogy, and Ijma', which is the consensus of all of the scholars. Those things are 4 rulings. But there are 14 other principles in Islamic law that are taken as maxims, the legal maxims. And all the other laws can be derived from them. So one of them, for example, is like sadd al-dhara'i. Something that leads to a haram is haram itself. That's an Islamic principle. Well, this is one of the Islamic principles. There's no harming, nor returning harm. Okay? So let's give an example of financial harm.
Interest?
Interest is financial harm. How? Okay, if you charge someone interest, yes.
Yes.
If you charge someone interest, yes, that's financial harm. So you give somebody money, and then when it's time to pay back, I gave you $100, and they say, no, give me back $110. Right? That's an example of harming somebody. What else is a financial harm?
You borrow the money and don't return it.
You go borrow money, you don't return it even though you have it. That's a harm. What else? Just under finances we can think of things. Yes? I'm sorry?
Holding goods and not selling them.
Intikhab?
Ihtikab.
Yeah, ihtikab. Okay, yeah. So you take goods. It's when you, for example, you come into a place and you buy up all the wheat and you hoard it so that the price of wheat goes up. So that's basically, it's a monopoly. It's getting a monopoly and you control. That's why we have antitrust laws, right? Why in Western laws do you have antitrust laws? If they see a company is getting too big and it's dominating a field, they will force that company to break up and compete against one another, right? Why? Because it causes darar, it causes harm to people. When you have the price controlled and you drive it up. Or you buy all of one item that's needed, a staple item, and you hoard it for yourself. Imagine if somebody bought up all of the eggs in a society and nobody released eggs. That's a problem, right? So, what else? What else is financial harm?
Stealing?
Stealing from someone? Okay, yeah, that's a very clear financial harm. What about not mowing your lawn so the property value of your neighbor gets affected? That's a harm. So we don't think about that. But, I remember once when I was a kid, we didn't mow our lawn once for a little while and it just grew a little bit. And we got a knock on the door. Police officer.
Yep.
So you, sir, yeah, you've received a complaint that you haven't mowed your lawn. And, I'm not going to tell you who it is, but I think you can figure it out. That makes our neighbor, right? So we mowed it right away, but some people are very, very sensitive about, our lawn has to look perfect because my property value is going to get affected or something like that. What are other examples of this? It's just unlimited examples. You're selling something on the side of the road and somebody puts their cart in front of your cart when you have a right to be there. That's harming somebody else, right? They're trying to run some type of business. Or even on another basis, there's a school that's operating. Not just financial, there's a school operating. And you're blasting music from your car so much that the teacher cannot teach the students. You're harming them. Or the school is blasting music and you can't hear the people praying. They're practicing some song, for Islamic song or something. Can't hear the people can't hear the imam praying. That's a type of darar. I'm just giving an example. I'm saying it can happen all different ways to different parties. You have a party in your house. It's a wedding going on in your house. So what do? You turn up the music and now the neighbors can't sleep. This is done. That's why we have laws, noise violation, right? From this time to this time, you cannot have noise higher than a certain decibel. Otherwise, police knock on your door, turn it down. Your neighbors are complaining, you have to go to sleep. You park the cars in such a way that you block someone's driveway. Harm again. And it's funny because even though sometimes we come to pray in the masjid, and we've blocked people out in a way that's not allowed, right? What else is done? People use the public toilet and they don't flush the toilet.
When you have dirty neighbors and the roaches come into your apartment and you have to move.
Exactly.
Which happened to me.
Yes, that is done. If you leave your garbage out on your doorstep, outside, not in the box, you just leave it on the doorstep. Next day, the raccoon comes and tears your garbage open, or in the night, I should say, and your garbage is now littered all over the lawn, and now more vermin come to your neighbors and to everybody else. But the garbage is on your neighbor's lawn. Who is responsible for cleaning that up? You, right? So this is the idea of darar. It's a very, very vast thing. Now, the first word, there's a debate between scholars, darar and dirar. It sounds very similar. What is the meaning? Some scholars said it's the same meaning. But the Prophet was saying it twice to emphasize. You can't harm anybody and you can't harm anyone. But then other ulama said no, that it cannot be simply harming somebody and not harming somebody because it's a repetition. There must be something new in the word that we're getting from it. So they said there is another meaning where darar means to cause harm first, and dirar means to harm person back. So returning a harm. What does this tell us? Why is that second aspect there?
Works like revenge is bad.
Yeah, because what happens if somebody slaps you? What do you want to do? Slap them back, right? So the reality is, many times, the things that we do wrong to people, the things that people do wrong to us, there is a huge temptation to do that wrong back to them. In fact, sometimes we even stop thinking about Sharia or anything. So someone swears at us, the first person who opens the swear word. If somebody insults your mother, then you're going to insult that guy's mother. What did that person's mother do to you? Nothing, actually. But this is the mentality, right? You punch me once, I'll punch you twice. Sometimes we go even overboard. Astaghfirullah. Sometimes it happens, spouse discovers the other spouse having an affair. What do? They go have an affair. This is dirab. This is exactly, obviously you're hurting yourself first. But the temptation to strike back is so much that when people harm you, it's very hard to just allow them to harm you. Right? So, however, the ulama do say there are some conditions here that if it is that the harm is something that is entailed by Sharia as being just, that is okay. So what's an example of that? What's an example where the Sharia has allowed? Self-defense. Someone's trying to kill you, and so someone comes to rob your jewelry store, right? And what happens? Well, you've got something else underneath the table and you're defending yourself. Someone breaks into your home and you have a weapon or something and you're trying to defend yourself. Obviously, you're causing harm to the other person. But this is why even the laws here, right? What does it say? If a person's in front of you and you attack them, something happens to them, God forbid, but that's self-defense. What if they turned around and were running away? And then somebody shot them? Would that be just?
No.
Not even in this law would that be allowed. That person is now out of your face. So in one sense, but what does the mind say? Oh, you robbed my house? I'm not letting you get away. Right? So there's actually laws where if it's head on, if it's face on, you can do that. If it's to the back, it means that person actually did not want to engage you. Right? So that's an example of how sometimes harm is permitted, sometimes harm is even necessary. What's an example?
So the harm is unnecessary?
No, it's necessary. So for example, police. Police sometimes are trying to apprehend a criminal, okay? And the only way to do it is by wrestling the criminal down. There's no other way to do it, And so this is what happens when they go overboard. They could have made the arrest without harming the person in the least, right? It's a simple traffic violation, yanking the guy out of the car, wrestling him to the ground for no reason. This is haram, right? Why? Because you went la darar wa la dirar. It means there is no harming or harming back in a way that the Sharia does not allow. So obviously, Muslims cannot be such pacifists that you slap one cheek and then you turn the other cheek. This is not the way of deen. The some ulama also say that you are allowed to cause harm to the extent that you need to get your right back, if it's balanced. So let's say somebody, for example, somebody mugs you and they rob you and they run away with your wallet. Later on, you catch the guy in the street. Hey, you're the guy who robbed me. Okay? So what do? Just stand there and say, please give it back. No, you tackle the guy, you fight the guy, and you fight it until you get your thing back. Somebody your neighbor stole your bike. Okay? Your neighbor's kid, let's say, stole the bike. And actually, this happened. This happened to somebody when I was a kid. Their bike got stolen. And then the dad is driving around in different neighborhoods, and he sees his own kid's bike, in somebody else's garage or something, right? Is that person allowed to go inside the garage to get what's his? But there are some rulings that would allow you to do that. No, you have my thing, and I know you have it. I go inside your house, I take the thing, and I leave. Because there's probably a difference of opinion about that, but it's an example. But what happens if, on the way, you're breaking windows, you're not just taking back what's yours, but you're destroying the other person, so you take something back. That's dirab, right? So that's the example where you're not allowed to do that. Especially in marital relations or with children, this is very, very important, right? Because oftentimes this happens with families. The spouse says one thing, the other spouse says something, and it escalates over and over until people are getting into a huge fight, right? And it really, really threatens a lot of marriages. So this is an example where you don't strike back, right? This is not the way of striking back with dirab. Same thing with parents, and perhaps many of us parents have made this mistake before. Your child annoys you, so you got angry and you spanked them, right? Now, are you doing that to discipline the child, or are you doing that because you're angry? You're doing that because you're angry, and that's not right. That's a very difficult thing as a parent, especially if you're in a culture where spanking is normal, right? They just dropped your vase vase or vase or whatever, that costs, $100, and they just smash the entire thing on the ground. Oh my God, what did you do? And then you proceed to do something like spank a child or something like that out of anger. You're not doing it because there's anything they're going to understand. Just to show your anger. So, subhanAllah, there's so many things even as parents. Harm is not just hitting, we mentioned that. Oh, thank you. Oh wait, is it on or off? It's on. Okay. The other thing the final thing that this hadith tells us is that a Muslim, they tread lightly on the earth. So the way that they are, a Muslim, the way that they're supposed to be, is you're not supposed to hear that a Muslim is harming people. One thing very sad, is there was a series of home invasions that was taking place in my hometown. Okay, home invasions, people breaking into houses, and these are some nice neighborhoods. These are not neighborhoods that are known for crime. And it was such a bad thing, like people in their houses, people bursting into the house, robbing them. It turns out when they have the mugshots of like a ring of people that were caught, 9 out of 10 of them were Muslim boys. 9 out of 10 of them. And you ask yourself, you wonder, what is it that obviously not proven guilty just yet, okay, but what is it that makes people fall into this life of being able to think that you can harm someone? I really do wonder. Do they ever undergo some type of harm that makes them feel like it's okay to harm somebody? Sometimes it happens. Sometimes a person who grows up abused thinks it's okay to abuse other people. Sometimes if you grow up bullied, you become a bully to other people. So this is the opposite of the Muslim. The Muslim is a person who treads very lightly on the earth. Okay, let's go to the next. Any questions about that before we move on? Okay, Bismillah. Next hadith. Yes. Correct? Or you unplug it? Sorry, just 1 second. Okay, we can just go on, guys. Okay, this next hadith is called "Claims are by proof only." Claims are only by proof. Okay, the hadith goes, Bismillah. عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: لو يعطى الناس بدعواهم لادعى رجال أموال قوم ودماءهم، لكن البينة على المدعي واليمين على من أنكر. حديث حسن رواه البيهقي وغيره هكذا وبعضه في الصحيحين. On the authority of the son of Abbas, Abdullah ibn Abbas. Are we up? No? Okay. On the authority of Abdullah ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with his father and son. The Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings be upon him, said, if people were given everything they claimed was theirs, if people were given everything that they claimed was theirs, then men would unjustly claim the wealth and the lives of other people. Instead, however, the burden of proof is on the one making the claim, and taking an oath of denying is for the one who is denying the claim. And this is narrated by Bayhaqi, and it is a Hasan hadith, and another part of it is in the Sahihain of Bukhari and Muslim. So that's what does this mean? If people, let me ask you this. If someone came up to you and said, "You stole my phone. Your phone, that's my phone." And then they went to the police. And the police, they said, "Officer, that's my phone." And the officer said, "Oh, really? Okay." And then the man said, "I swear this is my phone." And the officer said, "Oh, mashallah, you're a religious Muslim. You must be telling the truth." So they took your phone and they gave it to the person who is claiming that it's theirs. Would this be fair? But what happens if you said, "Come on, the person who's making the claim is a wealthy person. He's not lying. She is a very pious person. She's an elder person. How can you say an elder is lying? Is that fair? No. But look, stop. They took an oath by Allah that you took their phone. I swear by Allah, that is my phone. Shouldn't we give them the phone now? They're saying Allah's name. Allah's qasam. Right? No. You cannot do that. Right? What's another one? Somebody claimed, somebody passed away. Somebody was killed. They were found murdered and killed. Sorry but the example demands this. So they were found murdered, and the family said, we know who did it. We know. Because he had a problem with somebody on the other side of town. We swear it's that person. Would the police go and say, you took an oath, uqsim billah? Okay, handcuff that person, they're going to jail. That's it. But they took an oath. So the Prophet was trying to set down principles. Now, sometimes people might be thinking, this is a very basic hadith in one sense. Like, why do we need to know this? You're forgetting. The Prophet came in a time before there was law. He came in a place, in a desert. You know what he said, law of the jungle? You know what the law of the jungle is? What's the one law of the jungle? Right. That might makes right. Might makes right. The strong rule, right? And so the reality of how things are without laws is that the strong merely devour the weak. So the first interest of the Sharia in this is that the rights of people must be safeguarded. If you do not watch over the rights of other people and laws, what ends up happening in society? Absolute anarchy and chaos. Okay? Look at any society where the government has collapsed. When the government collapses, that means police are not functioning. For the 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, it is extremely dangerous and scary. People are looting in the streets. Women are not safe, even in their homes. People are rioting. If anybody has seen a situation where law and order have broken down for even a day, at the end of it, property is damaged, people are dead, all kinds of bad things have happened. So laws are something where Islam didn't just come to tell you how to pray. Islam came to bring laws. Because a lot of times people say, why did Islam bring all these laws? Just tell people how to pray and tell them to be good. It's enough. Be spiritual. Let mankind figure out their own laws. But do they always enact laws? They don't always enact laws. And they don't always enact fair laws as well. Right? So, I was watching a movie. Recently about a historic movie about slaves in America. And it was mentioned that somebody who was a free person of African American descent was captured by these slave traders illegally, even though it was illegal, and he got sold into slavery. Okay, and he made his escape. Okay, it's called 12 years slavery. And basically, he knew who his captors were, but he was not able to testify against them in court because of the difference in race. So he was never able to get justice from the courts. You know, this is what happens when human beings make up laws. They go through a period of time where that seemed completely normal. It was completely normal, speaking about race. In the 60s, at one point, it was completely normal for people to drink from different water fountains based on race. It was completely normal for, different things like this. Even in the Muslim world, some of the laws that were made up culturally were not right at all. A woman gets violated by a man. He can get off the charge if he marries the woman. But where in Islam does it say this? Where a woman goes and has a relationship with a boy, the man can do an honor killing on the woman. This happens in Muslim countries.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say. Not just Muslim countries, there are also some other cultures that do it. But when you have Islam, why would you need to invent more laws that violate the rights of people? This is what happens when you leave people to their own thinking, and you're not thinking through the prism of the Sharia, right? So in this case, the Prophet was saying, giving you a scenario, every single person was just given whatever they wanted to claim, then people would start claiming the wealth of other people, and they would start claiming their lives. People would go to jail for crimes they did not commit, only because of evidence or testimony of one person, let's say. But rather, the Prophet was saying, now this is the principle. Rather, the bayina, the proof, is on the one who makes the claim. And the oath is on the one who's denying the claim. So if I say that this is my phone and you have the phone, if you have a phone in your pocket, what is the default assumption? It's yours. That's the default assumption. So why would the law mess with the default? The law would not mess with the default. Rather, if I'm making a claim against you, the judge has to say, what is your proof that that is your phone? Then maybe I can say, well, maybe my name and all that information is on it, right? And maybe there's other ways. I have some sort of serial number that proves that that's my phone. There's many different ways, but that's where bayina. And what is bayina? Bayina is a clear proof. It is evidence that is 100% not. I was missing a pink phone, and that's a pink phone. And then the cop says, well, look, it's pretty close, so I'm sorry, give up your phone. No, that's not bayyin. Bayyin means something is clear. It's very clear that this is my proof, there's no way. I have a video showing how this person came to my desk at work and took my phone. There's a video right there, proof. Now, what happens if you don't come with proof and you make a claim? This is where they talk about the oath. Meaning, the person, the one who denies it, I didn't take his phone. The judge will say, do you have any proof that he took your phone? And the man says, no, I don't have proof, but that is my phone. And then the person who is defendant, they say, is this his phone? He said, no. Can you swear this is not his phone? He said, I swear, I take an oath, this is not his phone, this is my phone. Then the judge will say, that's it. It's defendant's phone, and the plaintiff, the one who's making the accusation, cannot take it. So you can defend yourself by an oath in case where they do not have proof against you. This, do you know where this principle came in? Like it was a big dawah for somebody? Ali radiallahu anhu, in his time, Ali radiallahu anhu, in his time he lost his armor. And armor is a very expensive thing, right? It's metal that's made according to your body size to protect you in battle. So it's worth a lot of money. He lost his armor. And he found his armor with a Jewish man. And he said, that's my armor. The Jewish man said, no, it's not. And Imam Ali was Khalifa at this time. Okay? He was the absolute authority of the Muslim world, the entire Muslim world, which spread from all the way North Africa all the way to Persia. And Imam Ali said, I'm taking you to court. He could have said, I'm taking it back. The police is not going to ask the Khalifa, but he said, I'm taking you to court. He sat in front of the judge. The judge was Qadi Shuraih, one of the big scholars of Islam. And immediately, they started to address what happened was, the judge called Imam Ali to come sit beside him, and the Jewish man to sit in the defendant area. Okay? So Imam Ali said, no, I'm going to sit in front of you, the same as the other person. Then the judge addressed Imam Ali radiallahu anhu as by his kunya, by a respectable name, or his title. And he addressed the Jewish man by his first name and last name. And Ali said, no, address me by my name and by him by his name, equal. And then he said, okay, what's the case? Imam Ali radiallahu anhu said, this man has taken my armor. And he said, do you have any proof? The judge said, do you have proof? He said, I have no proof, it's mine. Right? There's no videos back then, there's no receipts back then, nothing. So I have no proof. And then he went to the man, the Jewish man, and he said, do you have any, he's claiming this against you. He said, I swear this is my armor. What happened? The judge said, I'm sorry, I cannot decide in your favor, it's his armor, it stays with that man. So Imam Ali lost his case, even though he knew it and he could have taken it. As they left the courtroom, the Jewish man came to Imam Ali and said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. He said, this is amazing. He said, I'm going to confess to you. When you were traveling back from one of your travels, your armor fell off. Maybe it was in a bag or something, fell off of your camel. I followed and I looked at it and I picked it up and I took it. And I really thought, I'm under your rule, Muslim rule, and you would take it from me. I thought it's finished. But I saw today that this principle that your prophet has taught you, this is real, it's true. And he accepted Islam from that. So this is something that has benefited all types of people. What the next thing is, and the reality of the world we talked about is greed. So unfortunately, there was a time when the word of people could be trusted. But now we're living in a time where you can't just take things on oath alone. This is why it's good to record things. It's always better to record something, right? You have proof of something. Someone owes you money. When you owe your friend money, I'm not talking about like $20 or something. If you want to record that, you can, no problem. But any amount of money that is significant for you to lose, and you lend your friend that money, and you feel embarrassed. Oh, I don't want to embarrass them. No. It's actually to preserve your friendship and to have a record. You can always write, okay, please just sign this here. I, so-and-so, lent this much to so-and-so. Well, yeah, that's it. That way, there's always a record of something, right? We talked about just system, the importance of proof, that if there's not proof. Now, this has actually extended into other areas of Islam. What is another area of Islam that this extends into? Yeah.
Is there anything that prepares us for like a post-truth world? Where truth is manufactured, so like what do you...
Yeah, so the question is there anything that prepares us for a post-truth world in which you don't know what the truth is anymore, right? You don't know what's real and what's wrong. This is very hard, but this is where, you know, the Prophet ﷺ said, there's going to be a time when there's going to be a lot of unfairness. Okay, he was warning the Ansari. He said, fulfill the rights that are upon you, right? And ask Allah for the rights that are due to you. Meaning, if people become unjust and they're not giving you your right, you try to take them. But when you can't, you still fulfill your right. So the best thing in a post-truth world is to be truthful. Like, what else can you do? Right? Can I tell you, like, oh, make sure there's a website that can verify a false AI video? I don't know. Like, we're living in a world where I'm not able to say how to discover the truth. But when you stay with the Quran and Sunnah, that's one thing you know. It's not fake news. The only thing we may end up knowing in a post-truth world is revelatory truth. This is why revelation is so important. And this is why we don't change anything about Islam. Why don't we just update Islam a little bit? Come on. Take out this, put in this. Right? No, it stays the way it is because at least there's something solid. In a world where you can make a video, a deep fake, and someone looks like they're talking and it's not them at all. How can you trust what you see? Unless you actually physically see it. That's about it. And then you have testimony, eyewitness testimony, but again, people lie. So Allah knows best. Allah knows best. It's a scary thing. Alhamdulillah. And what were we talking about? Yeah, the importance of proof. Which other area does this come in, the importance of proof? This is legal, but it also comes into a religious area. This is used in religious senses as well. Like what? Yeah.
In Hadith.
In Hadith, in determining the laws of Islam. So this is not just a judicial question. Now your proof. Imagine you said, "Oh, this is proof. I want to do something. You're doing something strange." The scholars will say, "What's your proof for this? Where's your evidence for this?" "Oh, I swear it's part of Islam." Say, "No, I don't. This seems very strange to us. Bring me the proof from Quran, Hadith, and from the Imams, the Mujtahid scholars." So this idea of proof is not just only a legal question. It's in any single area where you have to establish truth. That is where proof comes in, right? Otherwise, anybody could claim, "Oh, I had a dream. The Prophet told me that this is the new law of Islam." What's this? Where's your actual incontrovertible evidence, right? Okay, next. The role of the oath we spoke about. Now, there are some people I never understood this when my teacher explained it to me. In the Arab world, there were some people who actually refused to take an oath. Okay, their word was so important to them that they said, like, if somebody said, "Swear," they would say, "I'm not going to swear." Why? Because my word, my oath, is more important than I just give it out to someone. They would never swear. So even if somebody said, "That car that you're driving is mine," they were falsely claiming it, and they came to a court. There were some people of nobility who they said, this is more of a cultural thing, but they said, The judge said, can you swear this is yours? And they said, I'm not going to take an oath. Right? In that case, you lose your thing. But there were some people whose oath mattered so much that they would never just give it out for something like that. They would only do a qasam when they meant it. When they really, really meant it. Even if they meant losing something, you're not going to make me swear. And yet these days, what do we hear all over the place?
Wallahi.
Wallahi, wallahi, wallahi. And you know, people are saying wallahi when they're lying. Like it's different if you even intended the truth. Wallahi, I'll do it tomorrow. Okay, maybe if you intended, fine, right? But there are some people who are completely lying and they're taking Allah's name. This is where the oath has become just watered down. But the oath used to be such a high thing that it used to be that people didn't even want to take an oath, even if it means they lose the case. Because I don't want my oath to be out there. What if for some reason I'm wrong? They would just lose the case rather than take an oath. Right? So there's nakala. Right? I help. There's actually a word for it. And I could never understand why people would do that in Islamic law. But I understood why. When your word has so much weight. The next hadith. Any questions about that before we move on?
Sheikh, just a quick question.
Yeah.
Like I know in our culture sometimes people say the word mannat. Like I'm doing a mannat. Is that the same thing as oath?
So mannat is when you say, "Oh Allah, if you give shifa to my family member, oh Allah, if you take away this problem, then I'm gonna tie something around my hand and I'm going to swear that I'm gonna feed the whole masjid. Okay? If I get this thing." That's what they call mannat. That's what you're talking about? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Yeah. So can you do it? You can tie a string on your hand and say, "Oh Allah, if my family member is given shifa, I'm going to feed the whole masjid." There's nothing wrong with that, right? But the problem becomes in sometimes the culture around it, how they start doing it, and they start doing it at the graves of pious people. I'm not saying even that's necessarily wrong, but how do you make a culture of something that's not indigenously in Islam? You have to kind of balance that. Because some people make more importance of doing that than they do of their own obligatory practices. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right, so it's not like the same as like the oath or
No.
that's different.
That's not is it an oath? It depends how you say it.
Right.
It's an oath with Allah.
Yeah, it's like a promise. It's like a promise. But yeah, if you actually said, I swear by Allah on me, I have to do this, then you have to. In Islam, it's wajib to do it. You have to. And if you break the oath, you have to pay a penalty. Kafara.
Right.
Yes? Okay. So that you break an oath, you fast for you either fast for 3 days, you feed a poor person, 10 poor people, you fast, something like that if you break an oath. Right? Okay. Let's go to the next hadith, and I think for the first time we're going to be able to do 3 hadith in an evening. Yes, inshallah. This next hadith is actually a very important hadith. And it is called Changing Evil with the Hand, Tongue, and Heart. عن أبي سعيد الخدري رضي الله عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه فإن لم يستطع فبقلبه وذلك أضعف الإيمان رواه مسلم. Okay. On the authority of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, may Allah be pleased with him, who said, I heard the Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings be upon him, saying, Whoever of you sees an evil action, let him change it with his hand. And if he is not able to do so, then let him change it with his tongue. And if he is not able to do so, then with his heart, and that is the weakest of faith. That is the weakest of faith, related by Imam Muslim. Okay? So the whole thing, firstly, the wisdom of evil. Right? The Prophet is saying, whoever of you sees a munkar. Munkar, it comes from the word nakira. Do you know what nakira means? Ankartu hadha shay.
Denial.
It comes from denial, but what it actually means, I don't recognize it. Okay? So, and the opposite is what? It's ma'rifah. So this is, in Arabic, nakira, it actually means something you don't recognize. And so a bad action became to be called munkar because it's an action that nobody recognizes as good. I don't know what this is, right? And so ankara yunkiru, inkar, is to deny something. That I don't know what this is. That's inkar karna, right? To deny something. Okay? It's related word Urdu with Arabic and all the different Islamic languages. So now the thing is, and the opposite, a good deed is called what? What's the opposite? Munkar and? No. Those are the ancient.
Acceptance.
It's no. How do you say in Arabic? There's a munkar, nahyan al munkar, amr bil ma'ruf. So to do a good deed is called ma'ruf. But what does ma'ruf actually mean? This is how the shay ma'ruf is understood. What does it mean? It is known, right? A ma'ruf is something that is known, meaning everybody recognizes it as good. Because a good deed, every culture you go to, a good deed is recognized as good. And in any culture you go to, stealing is bad. It's recognized as bad. So now, the when ra'a minkum munkar, anyone among you, man ra'a minkum, anybody who sees a wrong deed, meaning something you know that's not right, you reject it. Right? Then what should you do? فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ, so let him change it with his hand. You notice the Prophet ﷺ did not say that you forbid it with your hand. He said change it with your hand. So it's an active instruction. Now the wisdom, sometimes the Prophet ﷺ, so the first question here is the wisdom of evil. Allah put evil on this earth in part to test us. You know how some non-Muslims, they have this problem, the problem of evil? If God is so good, why does He create evil? Why doesn't He just take care of it? Because He is testing not only the person who's doing the evil, He's testing the person who's seeing the evil but doesn't do anything about it. Okay? The test is happening to everybody around that evil action. So sometimes we look at something evil happening and we say, not my problem. I'm not responsible. Right? I'm not responsible, not my problem. They're doing it. No. Here, this instruction implicates everybody who sees this. So this is very, very important to understand. The wisdom of evil is it's a test. The next thing is, it is a test and a duty of the believer in stopping that evil. But of course, this goes back to what? Your own capacity. What types of capacity are we talking about? Because the Prophet said, whoever is able to with a hand, then change it. And if he's not able to, then with his tongue.
Like his power of how much he can assert in order to not doing something bad.
Like an example is what?
Like these days with sorry.
Just finish?
Like if someone is, I'm just like a policeman.
Okay.
If they see someone doing wrong, they have a power to physically
Okay, what kind of power is that?
the action.
No, what kind of power? That's a power coming from what's in strength.
No,
It's authority.
authority.
It's authority, right? So that's one type of capacity, is authority. What else?
Knowledge.
Knowledge is a capacity. Those who know may have the higher responsibility to speak out than those who do not know, right? In fact, another problem is people who do not know forbidding evil. That's a disaster, right? And it's a disaster when people who know do not forbid evil. That's a big disaster. That's a bigger disaster, actually, right? Right? So when the ulama stop speaking out about wrong things, that society is headed for trouble, right? What's another example? So knowledge, authority, wealth. Sometimes the wealth is a capacity. So you're able to, you can see something wrong happening, and because of your money, you can spend the money and change the situation. Well, like what's an example? What's an example? Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu sees Bilal radiallahu anhu being tortured for being a Muslim. He's a slave. And physically, Abu Bakr could not fight those people. Like you notice in the Meccan period of Islam, the Muslims never get into like fighting matches because they're outnumbered. And they're in a society, they have rules in a society. What does Abu Bakr do? He takes the money that he has, he was wealthy, and he purchases the freedom of Bilal. And Bilal's owner, quote unquote master, says, oh, he wasn't even worth that much anyway, take it. And Abu Bakr says what? I would have paid much more for him. I would have paid even more for him. So this is an example of changing an evil with money, right? You see someone is hoarding, not selling a certain good. You know, you're seeing people are, when it comes to aid to the people who are suffering in Gaza, and they're bumping up the prices of this aid, charging huge amounts of money for aid to enter. And some wealth, that's the munkar. So somebody with money says, this is wrong, I'll buy all of it and I'll give it in charity. That's an example of how money can change wrong. What else?
Or somebody is a victim of injustice, and with your wealth you can hire a legal help and take care of.
Right, hire a lawyer. When France banned the burkini, I believe it was, or the niqab or the burkini, one of them.
I think niqab.
Yeah, it was niqab, or it was the burkini in one place.
Hijab.
No, I'm just saying one of the cases. Right? Then there was a wealthy French businessman, Muslim businessman, who said, whichever woman gets a ticket, I will pay the ticket. So they can continue to practice their religious beliefs, whether you agree or not. But that's a very, I'm not a word, it's a very manly thing to do. Mashallah, that's money, right? So what other types of capacity? There's wealth, there's knowledge, there's authority. There's an obvious one that we're missing. Physical strength. Okay? You see someone roughing someone else up for no reason. Okay? And there's nothing else. You have to intervene in that sometimes. Right? You see someone bugging someone else, so you tackle the thief onto the ground. That's changing something with your hands. That you can make a citizen's arrest. You can grab that guy, tackle him, and hold him until the police come. That's a citizen's arrest. So there may be other things as well, but I think we've mentioned anything else that someone can think of? Time? Okay,
You're not gonna have time to solve every crime, let's say, right? You have to focus your time on certain crimes. You're a detective.
Yeah, okay, that's another good point. Someone has the time to make a difference. So let's say someone has the time and they decide to become a social justice activist, or they do a lot of activism because they have time. They're retired. Their spouse works, they're free, or they're just wealthy enough to take time. Then, for example, so these are all different types of capacities. Now, the point is, however, in this hadith, do you notice, starts with the hand, meaning physically, change it, then it goes to the tongue. So the tongue is actually considered something, it's not as effective. Right? Let's be honest. If you were to see someone slapping a woman in the street, abusing a woman, and you grab the guy's hand and you twisted it, that's much more effective than saying, hey, stop that. Right? But even saying stop it is more effective than just giving him an ugly stare. Right? And maybe sometimes if that's all you can do, just give him an ugly look. Like a disapproving look. So now, what this hadith is trying to say is everybody can actually do something with evil. Is there anybody who cannot do anything about evil? No. Because the least you can do is hate it in your heart. But what happens when and this is why it is the weakest form of faith, meaning it's not that you are a weak Muslim, it's you're not enacting Iman in the way they're supposed to. When you see something wrong, you're supposed to stop it. But if you can only enact it in your heart, look, we see things day in and day out on our social media about what's going on with our brothers and sisters. Okay? Some of us, nobody can change it with their hand. Some of us can speak out, but still not change it. Some people cannot even speak out. They'll lose their job, or there's some persecution that they are afraid of, and so they have to hate it in their heart. Right? But that's the weakest form of faith. But what happens when even that leaves your heart? What happens when even that leaves your heart?
That's very, like no Iman at all.
There's no Iman at all in that specific thing. You see, so for example, right? You see the fitna about the LGBTQ and all that was coming up. Okay, we are not authorized to change that with our hands. This is what the ulama are talking about as well. Is anybody allowed to go in a park and start breaking up two people who are together? Can you do that? You can't do that. You can't. You're living in a society where I cannot go to a coffee shop and find a girl and a boy sitting together, and I know your parents, and I split you apart physically. I can't do that in America, right? I can't do that. Can I say something?
Maybe a little. Or a look is enough.
Societally, but you can say something, right?
Can you?
Huh? It's hard. Yeah, you can't. Societally, you can't. But couldn't you say like let's just say, I'm just giving you an example. Like you saw a kid who was very young, smoking in the back of 7-Eleven or something like that, okay? And, okay, maybe you can't go and like grab, maybe you could. They say, take the cigarette out of his mouth, maybe. You know, if you're like, have a relation with them. But that could be considered assault or abusive. So you wouldn't do it. But could you say, hey, do your parents know about this? Remember, forbidding the evil is not in like, you're not swearing at the person. Or you're saying to them, hey, don't you have any shame? Like, oh, come on, hey, don't you know that's not good for you? So you could say it. There's all these rules around that, though. So I'm not saying everybody has to go up to everyone who's, every kid who's smoking a cigarette, every kid who's holding someone's hand. I'm not saying everyone has to do that. There are laws that I will talk about, but the point is everybody can do something. But when even the hate in your heart for sin goes out, that's when it's gone. The teachings are gone from your heart. So when you look at, the problem becomes, this is where entertainment, pop culture entertainment is very difficult. Because we look at a movie, and let's say you're watching, then something wrong comes. And it's not being represented as wrong, it's being represented as okay. But you're like, but if I hate it, then I'm going to have to hate the movie. And I like the movie. Or let's say you don't want to be a bummer. This is actually a place where Muslims are in a little bit of a modern dilemma. How do we handle this? Okay, either you plug out of popular culture completely, or you have to keep. But that tension is actually very important because it keeps your faith alive. When you look at something, my sheikh taught me, that his sheikh taught, that a sign that at least you have hate in your heart is that you frown when you see it or hear it. Right? At least something that you can tell when a person is disturbed inside. For example, which example can I give without getting in trouble on YouTube? Whatever. You see something that's clearly wrong, and the whole society thinks it's okay. Okay? Do you just say, oh, that's so nice, haha? Instead, or do you just say, okay? You can tell the person's not too happy about it. Even that is a form of faith in that situation. Even that is an act of iman. As low as it is. What's the next thing? There are laws of forbidding evil. So you cannot just walk up to somebody and physically do this. There were just differences of opinion among ulama. Some of the early scholars, they took this very literally. And they said, you have the authority to go and change anything by hand if it's evil. That means, if you heard music in the house of somebody, we literally gave this example, you could burst inside their house, destroy their instrument, and if you found alcohol bottles in a Muslim's house, you could break the bottle and just walk up. Because look, the hadith says this. Right? I mean, probably after a little while of that, other ulama said, no, listen. There are laws. So they said, later ulama said, the laws of the hand are for the government and the police. The laws of the tongue are for the scholars. And the laws of hating it in the heart are for the general public. Meaning you cannot go around being a vigilante. Okay, how annoying would it be if there was some guy who walked around every single halal restaurant and said, sister, cover your hair, cover, sister, do this, do that, sister, dress like this, sister. I mean, it's really annoying. I mean, you've seen this ever. Or brother, get your pants above your ankle. Brother, get your pants above your ankle. Imagine somebody walked around. So then this is where it would cause disruption, chaos in society. However, what Ibn Hajar says is that a person does not have to be a literal scholar. Once they know the ruling of that, then they can use their tongue to say that. But this is why, as well, you have to know the laws of Islam before you forbid something. So let's say you see Indo-Pak guy eating lobster. Indo-Pak guy from North India eating lobster. You're a Hanafi. To you, lobster is haram or lobster is makruh. Can you go and condemn that person for eating lobster? No, you can't, because there are other opinions where it's completely fine. But the person, if they have very little knowledge, right, then this is where they're going to fall into a problem. Or sometimes you only follow one scholar's opinion, and then you condemn something, you don't realize there's a whole other opinion. So, for example, there are things, majority of the scholars said you cannot use instruments in spiritual music. I'll give you an example. I'm not saying go out and do this. Give you an example. And there was a minority of scholars who said you can use instruments in spiritual music, religious music. Can you now go and start breaking up Qawwali parties when they're having Qawwali parties? You can't do that. Because they have, you see what I'm saying? You cannot do that. For example, Maharajin comes here, he uses instruments in his music, right? He follows that minority opinion. Can you go cut the mic, disrupt everybody and say no? You can't do that. So there are laws of forbidding evil and difference of opinion. You have to know the difference of opinion, and you cannot condemn when there's a difference of opinion. Okay? What about some other thing about forbidding evil? The laws. There are limits as well. If you think that, Imam Ghazali mentions, if you think that your forbidding it will not make a difference, it's not wajib upon you to do it. Okay? So naturally, you walking around university telling women to dress a certain way, you think they're going to listen to you? No. So it's not wajib upon you to go around saying that to everybody. Right? It's not wajib upon you to go around saying that. And so on and so forth. Any questions about that? This is the last hadith for the evening, so we can have some time.
What if your intervention would cause harm?
That's another thing. Thank you for that. So this is actually a whole section that we can study separately another time. But al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, commanding the good and forbidding evil, has a whole set of laws to it. And one of the laws is you cannot condemn the evil if it will cause a greater evil in return. Okay? So for example, you correct, like let's say a person has an abusive father, and they want to correct their father for something their father does wrong. Baba, you're doing this is haram, you shouldn't do this. But the father is going to get really angry and maybe become even more abusive. In that case, you just stay silent, because you're creating a bigger problem. Or you go up to a bunch of young thugs, doing drugs in the street corner. You're going to go and say to them, like, guys, put your drugs away. You're going to get beat up. That's a greater harm to you, so you don't have to do that. The point is what? Is when you can, and when you can, if possible, you have the knowledge, you have the authority to do so, it's going to be effective if you do so. If it's not going to be effective, you don't have to do it. But if you did it, that's your choice. What's another one? Notice the Prophet said, Man ra'a minkum munkara. Whatever evil, whoever sees it. Meaning, if you do not see it, you don't go digging for it. So you don't go burst into the college dorm, and you go down the list of all of the Muslim names. Haha, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? No, you don't do that. You don't walk into a movie theater, turn on the lights, and say, hey, everybody, who's sitting together? Are you married or you're not married? You don't do that. Because whatever you see, you don't go looking for it. Right? Whatever's out of the public eye, it's public morality. It's not delving into people's private. Let me see your chat history over there. Let me see your right. They're talking about public order. This is why in Islam they had this general thing where in public there would be public correction. So it's still in some places in the Muslim world. If you walk around doing something wrong, the public will say, Ya akhi, ittaqillah. Oh brother, fear Allah. What are you doing? They'll tell you that. But you know what? In those societies, that's effective. Because they say, okay, I'm not going to do it. Okay, sorry, I'm not going to do it. But you notice private. In Islamic societies, the private sphere was completely different sometimes. Because people did not get into people's business inside their houses, right? So we have to rectify all of us. Now, then, we talked about who can use the hand when, who can use the tongue, and the heart can have an effect. And the point is, at the end of the hadith, that this all starts and goes back to the heart. In the end, if the heart is sound, the tongue and the hands will do what they have to do. But if the heart is not sound, this is why changing the beliefs of Islam is so dangerous. You no longer can forbid the evil. Right? So alhamdulillah. That's what we had to say about that. Is there anything else? Anybody have any questions before we close for the evening about this or anything else?
How do you deal with ego and the need for correcting people? I think it's really easy to delve into correcting people, but then you're kind of just feeding your own ego.
So, all of your questions, I should just turn it into a class on. Because it's true. The point is, how should you forbid evil? This is what they say. The desire should not be in your heart to correct people. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but this is a very common sight when I became Muslim, because I'm probably one of these people too. The young guy whose beard is bigger than everybody else's, even though he's been Muslim for like 2 years, and he's going around and telling the uncles how they're doing everything wrong. Okay? If your heart wants to correct other people, that's a disease in your heart. If you like to be the guy who tells everybody they're wrong, there's probably something wrong with your intention. Because you say, I'm doing it for Allah, I'm acting on this hadith. But how can you avoid the ego getting involved? How can you avoid the ego getting involved? And it's these types of people who often have a hidden department in their own lives. A hidden department meaning a place where they're disobeying Allah in private. And if someone was to put their hands on that, they would become very defensive. So actually you need to check yourself. If there's sometimes commanding the evil, forbidding the evil is wajib. There's no one else who can do it, and you have the authority. Wajib, right? There's other times where it's fard kifaya. Somebody has to do it, but if one person takes care of it, everybody else is okay. So police officers, they're doing fard kifaya, meaning communal obligation. Because the police are doing their job, we don't have to do the job of the police. I can see a crime happening, I don't have to get involved, the police will come to it, right? But there's some times where you have to ask yourself, should I say something or should I not? Is this my ego speaking? Am I just trying to correct that person or not? So then you should look inside your heart and ask yourself, do I want to do this or do I wish someone else could do this? If you wish someone else could do this instead of you, do it. Because your intention is more likely pure. You get what I'm saying? So that's an example of that. The other thing is, correct people in such a way that it's not in public. So sometimes what we do is correct people in public. You're supposed to take them aside. You're supposed to talk softly with them. Be nice to them. Don't condemn them. That's how we do it. Any other questions? Okay. Yeah.
Is that how sometimes people feel like they're entitled to correct you, or they're like, if I don't tell you anything, sister, it's my duty, or
Yeah. So this is the hard part. That they have a point. They have a point. That there is an aspect of Islam. It's a balance. So these days we're getting to a point where nobody can tell anybody anything. Like you cannot say anything haram because you're judging me. That's one extreme. But there's another extreme, and this is what Muslim societies are going through, where everything is just attacking other people. So there has to be something in the middle, right? And this is where wisdom is very important. This is why people who are very young or very new in religion should not be the ones condemning. They shouldn't. I remember this, like today it happens, people will go on the Instagram, what's it called? The Instagram profile of someone and start to correct them in a way that's condemning them, putting them down. It's not really effective by doing it that way. First of all, you're putting it in their public comments, so you're insulting them. So you're more likely, when you insult somebody publicly, even with Islam, this is haram what you're doing. What do you think is the result? Inwardly, they want to do it more.
mm-hmm.
They say, I don't care. What do they say? I don't care if it's haram. Now you make the person actually do a greater harm. Because now they're saying, I don't care about Sharia. Had you gone to them privately, that would have been enough. Right? I remember once I saw a taxi driver in Jordan wearing a gold ring. Muslim man wearing a gold ring. And he was talking about Islam so beautifully, talking about everything. At the is it time? Okay. It's time, so I'm going to stop what I'm saying with that.